I'm speaking with conductor James Morgan. James has a hugely successful career conducting in the studios and in concerts. He's conducted virtually every major orchestra in the United Kingdom and major orchestras throughout Europe. In 2012, James was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's at the age of 42. Despite this, his career has flourished. He's conductor of the Brighton Festival Chorus and has a successful duo alongside his wife, Juliette Bocha. I'm thrilled that James has been able to arrange a schedule for us to have this conversation. Wonderful, fantastic. Well, I so appreciate you taking some time to talk with me. This is an experience for me that I'm now 2 years past my diagnosis and still getting used to the idea. And I'm so appreciative, actually, to through social media, I've made contact with several conductors. And for me personally, my doctor said to me right away that if you know one Parkinson's patient, you know one Parkinson's patient. Like, we all have our own individual journeys. But what I'm discovering is there's really common threads and common experiences. And I'm thrilled to have a chance to speak with you.
And I was just delighted to meet someone else with Parkinson's who conducts, because unlike you, I hadn't really come across anyone who'd had that experience. And Parkinson's brings a whole gamut of issues that with conducting in Parkinson's. So it's just really nice to connect with someone who's had the same experience.
Well, let me ask you, like for me, the first inclinations that I felt I thought I was having like an artistic crisis. I don't know if you've ever taken a long extended period of time away from conducting, but as a university professor, sometimes I'll go a month without a gig in the summertime, and it's that first rehearsal back that I always felt a little rusty. But I was feeling rusty all the time. Couldn't figure out what was going on, and I thought I was having some artistic crisis. What were your first inclinations for you that there was something going on?
Well, weirdly, my first inclination was a tremor, because which is odd now, because tremor is not now really one of my symptoms. It is a little bit, but it's not a big deal. But I was conducting a TV show in Denmark, big orchestra on the TV, and they did one of those close-ups. The camera came right into and focused on my left hand, which just started to shake, sort of uncontrollably, and I was looking at it, oh my God, what's going on there? And I'd had some pins and needles on that side, and a few things, but it was the leader of the orchestra. His dad had Parkinson's, and he said, look, I could be completely wrong, but I think you should get this checked out, because my dad has Parkinson's. It could just be a tremor, but you need to have a look at this.
Wow. So what was your process of getting your diagnosis process?
In the UK, it's fairly chaotic.
I can only imagine.
The National Health Service is not in the best of states at the moment. So I paid privately to see someone just to get a diagnosis, and then went into the system here after that. It's kind of an odd thing to pay money for someone to tell you bad news, but it was necessary for me to get onto some medication and actually to work out what to do next. So what was the process that they used for your diagnosis? As handwriting tests, there's all the kind of manipulative things they do with your hands and fingers, and checking spatial awareness, walking. There's plenty of things that I don't really have a problem with, and didn't then either. But there was enough for them to realise that it was Parkinson's.
So what treatment did they initially prescribe?
I went on to resergiline, the dopamine agonist, and then after a while I went on to the main levodopa drug after I guess a couple of years, and I've been on it ever since.
So do you take it regularly? What's your schedule?
I take a small amount, a lot. So I take effectively 100 micrograms every 2.5 hours.
So you're 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So, and I fiddle around with that a bit, depending on because schedules for conducting in the UK is quite often a 3-hour rehearsal in the afternoon and a concert in the evening.
Right.
So I kind of load my dosage around those rehearsals, around any breaks and things. So
Are you able to go a little bit beyond, or I mean, you feel it? Like for me, I take the one regular pill, and then there's an extended release pill that they have. So I go 4 times a day, I go every 4 hours during the day. But I take an extended release and a regular tablet, which works for me because I was having these huge ebbs and flow, these huge waves, like I would just crash. And this really kind of maintains quite steadily for me. Interesting.
yeah,
2.5 hours.
yes.
That's not a interval that is very convenient, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, I tend to kind of front loads if I've got a gig, like if it's a really big, like like Carmina Burana or something, I will take more than I normally do, on the grounds that I don't mind having a bit of a wiggle, a dyskinesia. And you don't really notice when I'm conducting anyway because there's so much stuff going on. I'd rather be more on and a bit over the top than off. I don't fluctuate. I can't remember the reason why I couldn't go on to the slow release, but there was a reason. I can't remember what it was now. But my fluctuations aren't too bad. I just kind of grind to a halt a little bit if I don't keep on top of it.
Fantastic. Now, are you doing any exercising or anything like that, or?
Yeah, I run quite a lot, so that's my exercise of choice.
Yeah, for me, I get probably, I feel an effect more profound after a session of exercise than I do. When my doctor said, exercise is something that you really need to do, I've always exercised, but never been an exerciser that the exercise was the priority. So I'm getting used to it's not scheduling exercise around my life, but to try to schedule my life around exercise.
Yeah.
Because it just makes such a profound difference for me. So tell me now, you're a left sider.
Yeah.
See, I'm a right sider, which has caused for me as a conductor some real difficulties. I spoke with a conductor who as of this point not made it public, but we had a long conversation because he contacted me after I put my essay on social media. And he's on his left side and has a very difficult time turning pages with his left hand. For me, all of my conducting career, I manifested time on my right side of my body. And what's interesting, as a musician, I was a trombonist, again, manifesting almost everything on the right side of my body. So I've been very right side oriented my entire musical life. And what I discovered, and actually what I think others discovered before me, was error. I would be making errors. For example, tempo problems. Like I would slow down and not realize it. Or I would take tempos wrong. Or I was also, and in our wind ensemble world, we do so many mixed meter pieces. Everything's mixed meters for us. I would be making errors, going the wrong direction on things and whatnot, and really not realizing it. And again, it took me a long time to put the pieces together, because I was having issues well before I felt that 4 years ago, that kind of disconnect feeling. So for me, the challenge has been to learn, and I'm in the process of learning to manifest that kinesthetic feeling of rhythm and time on my left side of my body, which is a work in progress, I will say.
Yeah.
I conducted with our ensemble at a conference this winter, and one of the other conductors after the concert asked me, "Are you left-handed?"
Oh,
And
really?
I said, "What? Well, you do so much with your left hand." I'm like, "Okay, great, I'm making progress then."
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I've certainly, anecdotally, there's evidence about the Parkinson's affecting your dominant side, whether you're it's not necessarily related to you being left-handed or right-handed, but it's more to do what you do with your job. So I'm left-handed, and although I conduct conventionally with my right hand, I use my left hand a lot, and that has caused me a certain amount of problems in terms of, so I've kind of had to relearn to be much more correct in my technique, if you like. So I'm actually using my,
For example, tell me about that. That's interesting.
Well, particularly on my left side, it feels sometimes like I'm conducting treacle rather than actually conducting air. Everything feels very heavy and difficult to kind of, which, as you can imagine, you have to work very hard to try and to mean tempo can be effective if you're not careful. So I was always quite a kind of, I used to use my left hand a lot, and the right just kind of beat time, and all my expression came out on the left side. So I've actually been, gone back to school a bit and actually had to relearn how to be really expressive with my baton and have a proper technique. So in some ways, it's been quite good for me, to kind of learn it properly.
So you said that you started your initial symptom was really the tremor, but you said that the tremor is not as profound now?
No, it's that's one thing that's the medication keeps really very much under control. The only time I get it really badly now is if it's cold, or in extreme stress situations like my tremor. So if you put me out in the cold, my whole arm starts to shake.
Really, temperature?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Any kind of extremes of like whether it's temperature or emotion or whatever, then I'll get a big tremor. But my issues is more slowness of movement, kind of slowing up, and my speech is sometimes affected and sometimes not, and it can be absolutely fine, or I can stutter my way through. So you clearly have.
I'm just starting to experience some of that, a little bit with the speech, just recently within the last month or so. Yeah, it's interesting. The connection, everybody, we may all have our own journey, but the one thing that absolutely 100% have in common is that effect of our emotional state and our symptoms. It's so profound for me. And not just high anxiety, but just any kind of anxiety or added stress. I feel it.
Yeah.
Which of course, some added stress, of course, is great, like that performance, that little bit of performance energy, anxiety, which we all crave, right? That gets us on the edge and gets us really ready to do. For me, there's a negative to that because I feel it. My symptoms, increase. You conduct such high profile performances all the time. How do you? Does it affect you? What strategies do you use to stay calm?
Well, I mean, I medicate. So for really big gigs, I use propranolol, like a beta blocker, just a small tablet to kind of which takes my heart rate down and helps with my speech. So I take it. I don't. It depends on the gig and how I'm feeling that day. So um, I did a concert on the radio, and I was really worried about. I had to speak a little bit, and I was really worried about. I wasn't worried about the conducting. I was really worried about the speaking. So I took a propranolol and slowed myself down. And I've got various. I've had speech therapy lessons, so I've got various techniques that I can use to try and slow my speech down and think about how I'm pronouncing my words. And they all work to a degree. So, but I use propranolol as a go-to for major events. Uh, it's beta blockers are a bit of a dirty word in the UK for musicians because it feels like you're relying on drugs as a crutch to help you with nerves and things like that. So they've got a bit of a stigma over here, but from the point of view of Parkinson's, they're absolutely crucial. In fact, my consultant has started prescribing them to other people having tried them out on me.
Wow.
So I think certainly anyone in a performing career, particularly if you have problems with speech or just generally in terms of heightened emotional state or anxiousness, I think they're a really invaluable tool because it lowers your heart rate and keeps you calm.
So what do you specifically? I'm taking notes here. What specifically? Which beta blocker? What do you? I don't know anything about it.
It's called propranolol, Proponol. But there are loads of different types of beta blockers. But it's I would, in fact, I've steered various musicians that I know who've suffered with neurological conditions towards it, and it's made a difference for all the people that I know.
Wow.
It's not something that Parkinson's can. It's not something that comes up necessarily with Parkinson's because it's not directly related, but it deals with the symptom really well.
Right, right. Well, you know, if you, first of all, let me say how wonderful it is to speak to somebody who understands, you know?
And vice
Um,
versa.
it, that performance anxiety, um, over the last couple of years, has made me enjoy the last note of the concert more than the first note of every concert. And I want to get back to enjoying the whole process because I get so concerned that I'm going to be the issue
Yeah,
in a performance. And I can cycle myself around, you know, you start looping that thought. And then as you loop that thought, the anxiety increases, and then of course you're doomed.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, amazing. So off the podium, um, how does Parkinson's impact like your day-to-day life?
I have to have occasional sleeps in the afternoon, and speech again can be the interaction with people socially can occasionally be an issue for me. Um, Again, it depends. It comes and goes a bit. So I can find certainly the first half hour of like a dinner party or a party or something like that can be tricky to navigate as I kind of get used to. And also, I don't know whether you have experience with this, but the constant people either asking you or your partner how you are and then what you say, and there's the I listen, I've lived with this for 13 14 years and I have still have yet to come up with an answer that's a that works. There's no kind of brilliant way of doing it. So either people ask you and they don't want to know the answer, or they ask you and they do want to know the answer, but then they want you to stop. And it's a very difficult, and it's very particularly difficult because it's progressive. So people automatically want you to say, "Oh, I'm doing much better, thank you." Parkinson's doesn't work like that. So that's the conundrum that I'd love someone to solve. And I'm sure many others would say the same.
For me, I don't know, you have so much more experience than I, but for me, it depends on the day.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I can go for a week and think like, you know, I'm doing fine. You know, I'm feeling great, and then the next week feel like I'm 80 years old.
yeah.
Uh, you know, and my routine is the same. So, you know, it depends on the day, and it's just it's so difficult to explain to anyone exactly. You're right. There's no quick answer.
No, and I've kind of learned to realize that people aren't necessarily asking you because they want to know. Some people genuinely do, and in fact, I've got a friend who's autistic, who's brilliant because he asks questions. He actually asks questions in a way that is I find easy to answer. He kind of goes. He saw me the other day and he went, "You slowed up. What's going on with your medication? Something's not right, is there?" I went, "Oh, yeah, actually, yes. My left leg's dragging a bit at the moment." And he went, "Yeah, I noticed. That's not very good. So what can we do to help with that?" It was very. People don't tend to say. People like to say, "Oh, you're looking really well," you know.
This is what's really funny for me. Ironic, I guess, is the word. Because exercise has become such an important part of my routine. I've lost. I'm physically like in better shape than I was, you know, 10 years ago. Um, so people are like, wow, you look great. Thanks. Do you have any problem like shaving or brushing? Well, you're because you're left-handed. Yeah, so you must have experienced those problems.
Yeah, so I shave. I still wet shave, but I'm going to have to give up soon because I cut my face to ribbons every time I do it, and things like turning keys in locks I can't do very well, and I've got my grip strength is disappeared on me. I'm having to do like bench press ups and things like that, because I'm losing a lot of upper body strength, and that's something that I hadn't realised you have to guard against with Parkinson's. You get quite a lot of muscle wastage quite quickly. So again, there's always stuff you can do, but it's just keeping an eye on this moving target that's constantly dealing with.
Absolutely. Uh, Amazing. So in your preparation, and like, so for example, for me, so much of our repertoire in the wind ensemble world, as I mentioned earlier, is mixed meters. We, especially in the US composers love to do lots of changing meters and whatnot. But recently I was conducting a piece that essentially almost every measure was a different pattern. And, um, uh, and it was at tempo 160 plus, which of course for me, fast tempos are not easy. And so what I discovered I had to do was to the MIDI of the thing, every morning in the weeks preceding, I practiced. Like calisthenics. I practiced building muscle memory. Do you have to do any sort of special preparation in anticipation of issues?
Yeah, I do exactly that, and I now have to do that for pieces that I know really well. So I did the Bruck Violin Concerto last month. I've conducted it loads of times before, but I now have to practice conducting it, just because otherwise, particularly if I get the treacle thing where everything feels like it's an effort, I have to practice making that effort, so that I'm still going to do the right speed of upbeat, and they're still going to get the fizz that you can get when out of an orchestra if you conduct in the right way. So I've had to start practicing, which is a real pain in the backside when you've done it. You know, particularly if you've done a piece like that. Really, I'm going to practice I mean, I could conduct that backwards, you know. But actually, I physically have to replace the fact that the brain connections are not being made in the same way as they were. So I have to replace that with physical work, and it does work. It really does work. It's fascinating.
Wow. Wow. That's really profound for me to know somebody else is doing the same thing.
Yeah, and and you should really be feel encouraged that it really does work. I mean, I've been conducting regularly all the way through my Parkinson's journey, and it hasn't stopped me yet, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop me in the medium future, even at this stage. And I'm a long way further down the road than you are.
Yeah, I've also begun coming up with symbols that I can write into the score to remind me about things. Like arrow directions to move my right hand, or like what direction like a releases, remembering like what to do on like at the end of a fermata, like where I need to go to make sure that I'm going the right place, like all the stuff that just automatically for 30 years would happen. All of a sudden I'm like I get to a point and I get frozen, like what, okay. And just having those little reminder symbols, I just started this past semester, writing in like reminder symbols about direction that what my hands need to do. And that's a work in progress, but so far that's, if nothing else, has lowered my anxiety about making the mistake. And I think one thing that is resonating from our conversation is the idea of beta blockers, this idea of doing what I can to lower that anxiety. Interesting. Amazing.
And the one
So
other
you
thing,
yeah, go ahead.
one other thing I am changing is that I'm going to move to a screen, because like your friend who struggles to turn pages, I'm having to learn entire works off by heart in order to counteract the fear I have of not being able to turn the page, and that's becoming a little bit unsustainable, because new work comes in and I can't learn everything off by heart. I haven't got time. So I've just looking into investing in quite a big tablet, A3 size tablet screen, double A3 size, with a foot pedal that I can work with. Some orchestras over here have started using those anyway, so PDFs are becoming much more available than they were. So I think it's probably time for me to make that transition.
So the screen is larger. What size is that? It's like about the size of a score.
Exactly. So it's a really big kind of custom made screen. I think the one I found is made in the US actually, but it's just but it fits a double A3 kind of conductor score with the pages open, and it comes with a foot pedal. It's got a program on it, and it just cycles through, and you can write on it as well.
Wow,
So
that's fantastic. So you see, I can't. That's yeah. You don't have to reach forward or do any kind of manipulation at all with the left hand. Then with that, because
exactly.
you use a foot pedal.
It means I can just use the left hand for some expression and dynamics and things like that. But if it's playing up, it doesn't matter.
Wow. So you're using a baton now with your right hand, or have you?
Yeah, I
Because you
always
do a
have.
lot of choral work too, yes?
Yeah, I don't use a baton in choral work, but I've used it a little bit more lately because even my right hand, I get quite a lot of stiffness, and I find having a baton actually a bit easier for some reason. I don't quite know why.
Interesting. So oh my gosh. The see, I don't have a tremor.
Okay.
Um, and I really feel like a duck out of water because everyone so far that I've encountered, one of the first indications to them was the tremor. And I don't have a tremor. So for me, uh, it was a long process to get my diagnosis because at first I was diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome,
I've never heard of that.
which is it's a repetitive use injury, like
Uh,
baseball pitchers or basketball players get it.
okay.
Um, and so I had physical therapy for that for like 11 months until they finally said to me, well, you don't have thoracic outlet syndrome, we're sending you to a neurologist.
Okay.
Um, but because I didn't have a tremor, I had no, they weren't sure whether it was some kind of dystonia. So my neurologist, said, well, let's start you on the carbidopa levodopa and we'll see if it makes a difference. And this was 2 years ago. So I started taking it, and for me as a university professor, during the semester, obviously the majority of my conducting is with my own ensemble at the university, but in those breaks, November, December, and then of course our summers, I do a lot of conducting around, and I do a lot in Latin America. Matter of fact, I'm in Colombia right now. And so so this was in May. And so I started the medication and went on my summer conducting excursions. And the medicine, I don't know if for you, but it made me very dizzy and quite nauseous. I mean, really unbearably nauseous. But I persevered and I took it. And anyway, so I went back in July and I said meanwhile, I was conducting, I felt like I was conducting okay, conducting better. So I said to the doctor, I said, this medicine makes me feel terrible, but I'm conducting fine. I don't think I need it. So he said, okay, we'll stop taking it. And I stopped taking it less than a week and I realized, well, the reason I was conducting so well and feeling well is because it was working. Um, uh, but I still, even with the extended release and the medication that I take, that first dose in the morning will still make me feel, it will still hit me hard.
Yeah.
Do you feel that? Because you don't obviously take it 2.5 hours during the night. So does your first dose hit you any differently in the morning?
Yeah, I still get the nausea and particularly the lightheadedness. Actually, the nausea is much better than that these days, but you feel very dizzy. Sometimes feel dizzy lying down. It's a very weird thing. It comes and goes though. It doesn't. It's not something that stays all the time for me. I just have periods where my body reacts better, and I don't know whether that I know each manufacturer is supposed to be delivering entirely exactly the same combination of levodopa and carbidopa, but I seem to fluctuate a little bit depending on which labels, whether it's called Cinemet or occasionally it seems different manufacturers have slightly different effects on me. They claim they're exactly the same, but I don't know. It could just be my brain playing tricks on me. But
Really?
I thought it was just interesting. And I have been on a. Have you heard of the pump, the Produodopa pump? That's
No.
that they had a. It's a European thing that they had a method of delivering carbidopa directly into the bloodstream with a pump, which in theory has worked really well on a number of patients, but it was a disaster for me because I didn't react very well to they made a liquid solution of the pill form. So delivery directly to the bloodstream would be much more effective, and it was, but it was extremely painful because haven't got the solution right yet. So it's quite acidic. So some patients have reacted like me, have reacted. It's a bit like being stabbed in the belly all day long. So there are, my point being that there are some other things coming down the line that I think could help us all when they've got it right.
Amazing.
And there's a lot going on, but it's still a bit of a fight because Parkinson's patients there's not a huge amount of money going into research comparative to other conditions. It's I mean, obviously in the US you've got the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which is incredible, the amount of work that's been done there. But in Europe it's a fairly small scale in terms of research developments.
On Thursday, I'm going to have a conversation with Rand Laycock. Have you heard his story? He's
No.
a conductor. He's a conductor, and he was a music educator and a conductor of a regional orchestra in Ohio. But at the Cleveland Clinic, they've done the brain implant, the deep brain, and his story was quite well distributed in the United States, quite well known. It's really profound how they he's got these implants and controlled and when they up the whatever I'm not sure how it all works, but you can see his tremor just completely go away.
Yeah.
Very profound. So let me ask you something. This conversation has been so helpful for me, and I appreciate you allowing me to edit it and share it with others, because I think for me meeting others and realizing the shared experience, just this feeling of not being alone, to have somebody, to have that feeling of connection as conductors, I think is really important. So let me ask you something. Words of wisdom. What would you say to a person that just received their diagnosis?
Don't panic is the first thing I'd say. That you're this is going to be a challenge, but there are many things you can do to mitigate those challenges, and you will be surprised if you go forward 5 years. If I could tell myself how I'd feel now 13 years ago, I'd have worried far less about the whole Parkinson's issues that I've had, and got on with my life more. I think it's to accept that you have it, but for it to be a positive acceptance. So do all the things that you're doing, the exercise and the conducting work, and there are ways to live with Parkinson's. Some people are unlucky and have very fast progression, but many, particularly if they're diagnosed younger, as we both have been, there are many examples of people who carried on working happily and well and functioning well for a considerable amount of time. And it's also to tell the wider world that we're still here and we're still working and we're still trying to make a difference with music, and we're not going quietly.
Thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate this opportunity for us to chat. And
No, it's a real pleasure, and great to meet someone else who's doing in the same profession. It's great.